So whenever there's an election, there's this talk about who the evangelical voters are going to go with. And the evangelical voting bloc, who are they going to side with? And are they going to help put somebody in the White House? And when I hear that every time, I just want to throw up. How did this word, evangelical, come to mean what it means in our world? The word's a couple thousand years old. It was originally used by the Romans. It's a Greek word. It means good news. And so the Romans, the Roman Empire, the Caesars, the emperors, they conquered everybody in their path. Everything from England to India was ruled at one point by the Roman Empire. And when the Romans would march into an area, they would say, submit to Caesar because Caesar is Lord. And if you said, no way, get out of here, they would crush you. There are stories about the Romans crucifying 2,000 people at a time, just absolutely destroying whole villages. Now, if you didn't resist, because resistance was futile, if you didn't resist and you joined, then you became part of the Roman Empire, and then they would tax you, and they would tax you a ton of money, which they would then use that money to fund their army, to make their army bigger and more powerful so they could go conquer more land. And so when they went around saying, we're bringing peace to the world, yeah, it was peace, kind of because they killed everybody who had a problem with them or who resisted. It was peace, but you could say it's peace depending on what end of the sword you were on. And whenever the Romans would have a great victory and conquer a new land, they would issue a good news announcement, a Evangelion, an evangelical announcement of the good news of how they'd conquered one more people and made them their slaves, their servants, their citizens, however you want to say it. Now, a couple thousand years ago, at this time when the world looks like this, with the Roman Empire crushing everybody in its path, a small movement started among a group of people who believed that their leader, Jesus, had risen from the dead. And they believed that this was good news, that death doesn't have the last word. And there was a new kind of movement happening in the world. Not through coercive military violence, not through crushing your enemies, but through love. And so they took this Roman military propaganda of Caesar is Lord, and they said among themselves, Jesus is Lord. And they took this idea of good news and say, wait, it's not good news when you destroy your enemy. It's good news when you love your enemy. And when you side with the widow, the poor, the immigrant, and the stranger among you. Their movement insisted that a whole new world was being made, a better kind of world, not through condemning and distancing and ostracizing and crushing your enemy, but through loving your enemy and standing in solidarity with everybody who's ever been kicked to the edge by the empire. And so this movement had its own kind of power, but it was the power that comes through sacrificial love, through the announcement of good news. Essentially, they were saying, who do you believe is Lord? Who's making a better kind of world, Caesar or Jesus? So the idea that a couple of thousands of years later, the word evangelical refers to a very narrow voting bloc with a couple of very narrow policies it's so far from how it started. It's not even comprehensible. So I say we take the word back. Evangelical means good news, and it's good news for everybody who doesn't fit in. It's good news for everybody who's hungry and needs food, everybody who's thirsty, everybody who just needs a home. It's everybody who needs a helping hand to get them up out of the dust and to brush off that dirt so they can have some worth and dignity. How did the word evangelical get hijacked like this? I think we should take it back. We should take back this word as the joyous, buoyant announcement of good news that death and oppression and violence don't have the last word. If it isn't good news for everybody, then it isn't good news for anybody. And for many people, this word evangelical has come to mean anti-gay, anti-science, anti-immigrant, and it's so far from its original intent, which was the good news of God's love extended to everybody who's ever felt the boot of the empire on their neck. The word's been hijacked, and it's wrong, and we need to take it back. I'm an evangelical, and I believe in good news for everybody.